Well, hi, I'm Dave Arnold, and welcome to the Tim and Josh Show.
Hello.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing very well. And you, sir?
I'm well, thank you.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for coming on the show. This is an honor. My
It is
goodness.
my pleasure. My pleasure.
So, the Adventures in Odyssey movie, how long was this on the whiteboard waiting to be greenlit before it finally got the go ahead?
Yeah, well, I can't remember the exact date, but it was sometime in 2021 when I was asked, as the executive producer of the brand, to basically brainstorm new ideas. What could we do to expand the brand into the future? And how could we make it grow into reaching a new audience? Because we kind of tapped out the amount of people that know about us and listen to audio drama or whatever. So
Right.
I came up with pages after pages of ideas. And the last ones that I put were visual because I thought, too expensive, Focus will never do it.
Yeah.
And that was the last one I pitched. And that was the one that everybody was like, yes, that's what we want to do. I had actually pitched a live action.
Oh my goodness. I was
Yeah.
going to ask about that. Okay, please go on. Please go
Yeah.
on.
No, I pitched a live action, but the concern from the executive team was if we do a live action and if it moves into a series and it becomes successful and we want to have a long run with it.
Hmm.
I mean, with audio, if we wanted to keep characters long term, we just change the voice out or whatever, or leave the voice because it didn't change it. Characters like Connie have aged a little bit, but not, enough to age them out of the show. So then we thought, well, the only way to do that is to put it behind the veneer of animation. And animation is a successful entity, and it would give us a different approach, and we could create a style that we liked and we thought would be applicable. And so that was the direction it went.
My goodness. So, did you guys already have an animation team, or did you have to go to a third party? Did you just set up your own animation team in-house? How did that work?
Yeah. No, that was the long part of the equation, Timothy, was quite honestly, because what we had to do is we had to do proof of concept to show that we could actually create something that was visually engaging, that could tell the stories well and all of that. And we went through a number of production houses doing tests, running them by the corporate team at Focus here, and never really found anything on the front end that was the right approach. All during this time, I had been working with John Pomeroy. John's a legend in the animation industry, having done tons of Disney properties throughout the years, and he was trained by Walt's Nine Old Men. So he's like 50 years in the animation field. And John is a strong Christian man, loves the Lord, and we began to work with him. And he did a pencil sketch, an animatic for us that captured it was just a scene. It was just basically a 90-second scene, but it captured something that we thought we could run with. Took that to the corporate team. They liked the approach and they said, well, now we just need to figure out who's going to do it. And John had some thoughts about that. He ran by several different directors that we thought, maybe these people could work. And we hit several roadblocks. The first person we talked to was Jamie Mitchell. Jamie has a long history in Disney as well, primarily with younger properties, but Jamie's an incredibly talented man. And so got in the conference call with him like I'm doing with you right now. We talked for probably an hour and it just didn't feel like the right fit. It was just kind of askew, a little awkward. And then we got another guy on, I won't say who he is, and I thought, well, this is right. This is the right guy. And we offered him the job and he turned us down because he decided to work with his brother on a different property that's already released. So then we went back to John and we're like, John, what are we going to do? And he's like, well, maybe I could do it. I'm like, well, that would be the best option of all. So I sent John, I had been working with several key people on the feature film script for the last couple of years, and I had gotten it to a place where I felt like this is ready to be seen and then decided if this is the right approach. I sent the script to John, and John called me up right after he read it. He was thrilled with the idea of it. He thought we were going to do basically a little kids show like had been done with the previous animation. He'd seen that and he thought, well, if this is what they want to do. But when I sent him the script, it was a much more sophisticated, more advanced, grown-up sort of approach. And he was excited. And so he sent it back to Jamie, the first person that we vetted. Jamie read it and he said, I'm in. I want to do this. And so Jamie and he's got a business partner, J Mo, and they hired one of the best line producers in the industry, and Clay Renfro, and then storyboard artists from from Disney days. They've developed their own production house over in Jakarta. They have just amazing, talented people over there. And over the next course of time, we began to do what they call a sizzle reel. And a sizzle reel really is a proof of concept. It's where you create the characters in the style and model that you want to show them. You create all the characters that are going to be in the feature, and then you create the look of the town. You create just sort of a visual approach. And then in that basically 2 minute sizzle reel, you're doing a very on the nose sort of encapsulated idea of what the story is. So it crunches it down and it makes it very obvious what the story is. We took that. The animation house team came to focus. We took it up to the corporate team. We sat there, played it for it, and they gave the green light at that point. And that was 2 years ago. And that's, I mean, not even quite 2 years ago, a little, maybe just a little less than 2 years ago that we began working on this in earnest. And just about done, actually, really close to having the feature done.
My goodness. Why did you guys decide to make it a prequel instead of a continuation where the audio is left off?
Well, where the audio series is going to continue. We're not going to stop doing that. People love it. It's making an impact. It's got a lot of people that engage on a weekly basis. We don't want to stop doing that. We want to continue doing that into the future. So my feeling was so much has been done in that era. And to introduce animation stories into there, now you've got perhaps different writers because we can't, I mean, there's only so many writers that work on the audio show, right? And they can't do everything between books and animation and audio that there's just not enough people. So we're going to get new writers in. How are they going to learn all of that territory? How are they going to know the characters in that space? How are we going to make sure that we're not, telling conflicting stories? It would be very, very difficult. My thought was, in addition to that, let's explore new territory.
Hmm.
But let's do something that actually is creatively exciting because this is fertile soil. We've never tapped into this before. And so the idea of going into the season when the Whitakers first moved to Odyssey, why did they move to Odyssey? What happened to make them do that? What were the factors that played into that equation? And then additionally, the thought of being able to see Whit as a married man. I mean, his wife is still alive, and we can see how she sort of influences him as a character. We can see Jason as a 15-year-old before he ever goes off and does all of his government work and whatnot. So we can see the formation of Jason into that person, and that's the big part of what this feature film is about. In some ways, it really is Jason's story, but it's the Whitakers in general because of what they're dealing with, and that allowed us to maybe bring in a few legacy characters as time goes by, but also to establish some new people and create new ideas for characters. And I think we've got a great ensemble of characters. It feels really good. And it allows us to ramp up into my thought from the very beginning, Timothy, was to just basically say, let's do however many seasons we're going to do of this thing. And then let's basically do the arc in such a way so that the last episode of animation has Connie Kendall walking into the door at Wit's End.
Oh my goodness.
And then it hands off perfectly to audio, and you've got one big sort of window of the era of Odyssey that you can see in two different forms.
Would I be right in thinking that this entire movie is pre-Wit's End entirely, or
All
does
of it. The whole, yeah. The movie is pre-Wit's End, and then we're moving into a series, a
Mm.
half-hour series from there, and it's all pre-Wit's End. Yeah, I mean, we'll see the Fillmore Recreation Center, we see the town of Odyssey, we meet Tom Riley, we'll meet different people along the way. But in order for Wit's End to be opened, if you know the show, you know what has to happen.
So you've also worked on the Young Wit series. I suppose I'm asking, is there any like references or anything from the Young Wit series that it got incorporated into the Adventures in Odyssey movie?
There is a key character that's introduced in the sixth Young Wit book. There is also a key character that's introduced, I think it might even be in the first book. I can't remember when we introduced that character. So these are two people that were huge mentors in Wit's life. The three people that really had a factor in Wit's evolution in his spiritual walk and especially his spiritual walk were his wife, Jenny, Ben Huck, from the Young Wit books. Then this new character that's introduced in book six, Professor Alois Torsney. And Torsney is pivotal in this feature film. It's a very much a science fiction sort of sci-fi meets National Treasure sort of story.
I was going to ask, is this a treasure hunt?
It's a hunt for a sort of treasure, yes.
Okay. So the movie is called Journey into the Impossible. Are we able to get a hint as to why it's called that? And were there any other titles that were up for consideration before deciding on that one?
You know how it is. You go through a bunch of titles, but there's a partner, company that we've been working with, Third Coast Media. They're based out of Nashville, and Brian Williams and Charlie Schneider came over to visit with us, and we were brainstorming titles, and Brian was the one that came up with Journey to the Impossible, and we all went like, that's it. That's the one. There was never any doubt because the rest of them were, I'm not a title person. I'm not very good at that. And so I didn't have any really strong ideas, but when I heard Brian's, I'm like, perfect. So that's the direction we went. There is a reason, and it's because of something that Alois Torsney says to Wit in this flashback scene from when Wit was a young boy. And he talks about how there really isn't anything that's impossible. You know, we know as Christians that God is the author of all things. God can do anything. With God, all things are possible. But we also know that technology is always advancing, and God's revelation of knowledge to us advances along with that. And so the more we know, the more we find out we can do that we never thought could be done. So those are the kinds of things that are introduced in this story that's basically set in the the early 1970s, before so much of the technology that we are in the middle of right now was ever introduced. Alois Torsney was at the forefront of so many things, and that's the beginning of the story.
Did you guys recast some of the characters for the animated series? And if so, was that difficult to do?
I mean, truly, the only person we really had to cast that anybody would know from the audio series is Wit, because in this series, Wit's in his late 40s. Well, the voice of John Avery Whitaker right now in the audio series does not sound in his late 40s. So we had to find somebody who represented Wit well vocally and could grow into the voice, one of the voices that we've done with Wit over the years. And we found a perfect solution to it. I'm very thrilled with the actor that we've got. And I don't know how much of that information's been released yet, so I probably should keep my mouth shut about who it is. But but he's a very, very well-known voice actor and a strong man of faith as well, which is nice to have when you're representing a strong man of faith. So the rest of the characters, quite honestly, I mean, Jason couldn't be Townsend Coleman because, again, he's 15. So we had to cast him, and we got a brilliant actor in that role who represents Jason very, very well. But in terms of Jenny, we've only heard Jenny in one or two episodes in the audio series, and I didn't try and come too close to that because, I mean, she's pretty much somebody we can explore fresh from the beginning.
So this movie is going to lead to a mini series or a couple seasons of an animated series, correct?
At least a couple seasons. It could be many seasons. It just depends how well it's accepted. It depends on if it can sustain itself. Animation's not cheap. It's very expensive. So there has to be a pretty good turnout for this. The feature will release in theaters. It will be at a theater near you somewhere. And then the negotiations right now with various distributors that are all very interested in this could include the streaming rights for the series afterwards, but that may be a separate deal altogether. Thankfully, I'm not the person making those decisions. When I took on this role in animation, I basically told my bosses, I said, listen, I've been doing a lot of the business side of things for audio too. I've done the creative and the business. I don't want to play in the business side on this. I just want to play in the creative side. And that was more than enough work for me to do to stay busy. In fact, it's been one of the busiest times of my entire life.
Is there any talk or any possibility of there being a second feature film ever if this one is very successful?
Yeah, we have talked about that from the very beginning. You know, there are a lot of series that are done in the animated space or not in the animated space where they start off with a feature film, they go into series, and then they come back to a feature, and then they do some more series, and then they come back into a feature. I think that's a very likely possibility. Again, it just depends on how well it's accepted, how well people respond to it. I'll just be honest with you. I think it looks fabulous.
Oh.
People are going to be surprised because really, I mean, I had a really kind of a somber moment the other day. I got on one of the fan websites, which I do periodically, and somebody was commenting, "This is going to be terrible." I saw the trailer. It looks hokey. What a dumb story. And I'm like, you didn't see a trailer. You saw a clip. Just a teaser clip that showed you what a few characters look like. And it wasn't even done yet.
Hmm.
And you've already formed an opinion. And that really kind of bothered me because I've spent 4 years on this thing. And I sat in Kappa Studios down in LA a couple weeks ago, working through the mix with the director and seeing it on a big screen. And I think people are going to be shocked how gorgeous this is, how lavish the animation is. It's spectacular.
Who do you have doing the music? Is it the same people who did the audio series, or is it a different crew?
No, we decided to just basically start fresh in a lot of different ways to give this its own identity. And so we basically we have a music supervision team that pulled a whole bunch of options for us of composers that I'd never worked with before. And Pancho Burgess is the guy who we chose. He primarily has been doing live action stuff. This is his first animated feature, and he is very talented. Let me just put it that way. The music is spectacular. It's emotional. It's epic. Everybody really wanted to do a live orchestra, but that was a little bit out of the range of what we could swing. But you know what? The samples he's got, everything sounds so good. It's just going to pop on the big screen. And then once we do the separate mix, it'll pop on folks' TVs and home stereos and stuff. So it'll be really, really solid.
I don't know if I'm allowed to ask this,
You can
but
ask anything.
oh, okay. Is there going to be a villain of any kind in this movie, or?
There are two villains. There might
Oh,
even be three villains in this feature.
oh. Are we allowed to know any information about them, or do we have to wait and see?
I don't want to spoil anything for you.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough. We might have already dived into it a little bit, but what are the main themes that you're wanting to explore in this feature film?
There are quite a few, actually. There are themes of sacrifice, patriotism. There are themes of loss and grief. There are a number of them, but ultimately, what they all come down to is pointing to faith that undergirds their lives in such a way that drives them to accomplish things that nobody thought were possible. And God sometimes uses hard things in our lives, right, to get us to those places. And that is the case for the Whitaker family, which is interesting, for an animated film to be dealing with hard topics like that.
Mm.
But the audio series, we don't shy away from those things because those are real life. Those are what we all go through as human beings on this planet. Life is not easy. Jesus didn't say it would be easy. He said just the contrary. You're going to have troubles in this world, but take heart, I've overcome the world. So our faith in God is what elevates us over those things. And that's how it plays out in this feature as well.
Were there any stories or any life events that inspired the writing of the screenplay? I know at one point I heard that you said you had a dream about Wit coming to the Fillmore Recreation Center or something like that. Is
Yeah, it was really interesting, Timothy. Before I ever started writing anything on this, I was laying in bed one night, and I think it was a dream. I mean, it could have been just my imagination kind of taking over, or it could have been a vision of something. But I saw it play out, and what I saw play out in my mind was a rundown building, dark, dingy, very sort of filthy and unkept and disheveled. We see a door opens. All we see is two legs walking in. They stop, and then we see from behind a silhouette, and then the character walks across this place, pulls a shade down or a curtain down off of a window, and dust sort of flies, and we see it's John Avery Whitaker. And basically, then in that scene, he's imagining and remembering Jenny, his wife, telling him what he needs to do to create this place, what he needs to do with this place. And that sort of memory of her is broken up with a baseball coming through the window and breaking the window and kind of bonking him on the head. And Whit goes over and sees this kid, gives him his ball back, and the kid says, "Sorry, there's just no place to play around here." And he's like, and Whit's like, "Well, maybe not yet." And it was just a little vignette like that, really is what it was. But when I saw that in my mind, I thought, yes, prequel is the right place for this. We actually moved back farther, as I told you. We're not starting it with the opening of Wits End or the creation of Wits End. We're going much farther back so that we have more time to work through the series if the Lord blesses it and wants to use it.
So in the Adventures in Odyssey albums and stuff, we see like cover art of like Wits End, and we also had the cartoon series before it. Do the locations in the movie resemble those illustrations, or is it kind of different?
No, we tried to stay as close as we could to it. Over the last 2, 3 years, we've done quite a lot of work internally here at Focus to try and create a visual sort of canon, so to speak. That word's used far too much around here, but and it's very limiting, and I don't really like it in many respects, to be honest. But we have created this visual approach to Odyssey that I was steering the animators to do that. So when we see the Fillmore Recreation Center, it's not exactly like Wits End, but it's close enough so that when Wit renovates it, he can get it there. And I don't think we ever see Wit's house represented, but Wit's house is in this. McAllister Park is in it. The statue of Wolfgang Gower is in there. And so, yeah, we tried to stay pretty close. We've got a map of the whole town. If you were here for the 1000th event, you saw the map and all of that. And so I handed that off to the animators. I said, this is the way the town lays out. These are some of the buildings. And we created, of course, new buildings because or new shops because this is years, at least a decade earlier, if not longer, than the audio shows. So it's very close, but it's not cartoony, right? Because some of the things that Gary Locke has done, if you look at Wits End, the house is kind of ballooned, right? And you've got the big place where the Strataflyer was from the thing in the back, the atrium back there. That's not a part of the look at all of this. But the overall approach visually of the town, the layout of the town, all of that is close. The surrounding area of the town will surprise some people.
Hmm.
But I really like it. And it was necessary for the layout of the story. And I think it gives a very diverse sort of approach and will confuse people even more about where this where this place called Odyssey really is. I don't want to say anything to disparage the animated series from back then because creative people worked on it and a lot of people that's how they know Odyssey, right? Just from watching those. But that wasn't the approach that I wanted to take for this at all. I didn't want to tell a little kid story. I wanted to be in the same space that we are with the audio show now, which is a much more sophisticated audience. I firmly believe that kids are a lot more intelligent than we give them credit for. If you talk down to them, they get bored pretty quickly. I've got a 10-year-old, 11-year-old granddaughter. She's one of the most intelligent. She reads voraciously. She can read a 400-page book in a day. So don't tell me that a 10-year-old has to be talked down to. I don't buy it. I don't believe it. These kids are super intelligent and much more intelligent probably than I was at that age. And the things that kids are going through are a lot harder now than they were when I was that age. And so we want to speak to those things, but we couldn't do that in that kind of a format like they had done with the previous animation show. It's a much more sophisticated, more grown up. I think adults will enjoy this. I think college age and high schoolers will enjoy this. And I think kids can enjoy it. In fact, that's one of the things that interested the director in this is to say they have these things that they talk about called quadrants when you're working on movies. And if you hit 2 or 3 quadrants, you're doing good. There are 6 quadrants.
Hmm.
This picture hits all 6 quadrants. And so they were thrilled about that. They thought the fact that, there's a existing audience already, but we know the goal of this is to reach more people. And it's not because we want more money,
Hmm.
it's because we want more people in the kingdom of God. We want more people to come to know Christ as their Savior. That is the only motivating factor for me. And that's my goal is to say, if you've never listened to Odyssey, now you can watch it. And if you can watch it, we'll get you immersed in this world, and maybe then you'll begin to listen as well. And then maybe you'll begin to read some of the books. And inside all of that content, there's a lot of Christian formation that can happen in a person's life. And Focus doesn't want to get this wrong because this is the biggest. I've been told this multiple times, so there's been a little bit of stress attached to it. This is the biggest project that Focus has ever endeavored to do. Focus on the Family believes in this brand, and that does my heart so much good that I just praise God for that. But they want to take their time, make sure we get the right distributor so that the greatest impact is made and that it can self-sustain so we can do more and more into the future if God wills.
Dave Arnold, thank you so much again for coming on the show. It really means a lot to me. So thank you.
Thank you for asking me. I appreciate it.